All right, episode 518 of Extreme Health Radio is going to be brought to you by the Extreme Health Academy. This is going to be awesome. This is something that we're working on behind the scenes to really help you guys and give you the how-to, practical, cutting-edge information about how to apply a lot of the theory that we talk about on Extreme Health Radio into your life. And so we're going to be offering courses, super high-level courses from hand-picked doctors about all kinds of different health challenges that you might be dealing with, like high cholesterol, heart disease, or how to get the best sleep ever, these types of things. And we're going to be offering these courses once a month. We're also going to be doing courses on every single organ system of the body. So your brain health, your liver health, your bone health, eye health, skin health, oral health, your lung health, heart health, colon health, kidney health, your nervous system. We're going to be talking about how to really dive deep into practically improve those different organ systems of the body of your life. And we're also going to be doing potentially seasonal cleanses. So every fall, every winter, every summer, we'll do a new cleanse. It'll be overseen by a doctor. We're going to be offering high-level information on minerals and vitamins and what they all do in the body and which organs they affect. And we're going to be having all kinds of resources with springs around the nation, healing centers that you can go to, biological dentists. We're going to have a community of people. We're all going to be able to get together in a private, exclusive online community, be able to help encourage each other. So if you guys are interested in the Extreme Health Academy, check it out at extremehealthradio.com/518. And we're also brought to you by our store. Our store is how we keep the show free. And we have some amazing, really cutting-edge products in our store, like the Vitalizer Plus that helps to structure and vortex your water and bring that energy into your water. We've got grounded sandals, if you can believe it. We've got ozone generators. We've got the beta-glucan to help improve your immune system. We've got grounded bed sheets, organic beds, the EMF Defender Pad, which helps protect against electromagnetic field radiation from your laptops. We've got the rapid release technology, which uses high vibrational energy to help reduce pain in the body. We've got the Scalar Energy Rest Shields that you can put by your bed, made by Ken Rola with Scalar Energy. We've got the Magnetico sleep pads, oxygen concentrators, PEMF machines, all kinds of cool stuff in our store. So make sure to check out our store the next time you are in the market to purchase something to improve your health online. So check that out, and as well as the Extreme Health Academy at extremehealthradio.com/518. All right, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us here on another episode of Extreme Health Radio. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day. This is going to be a fun episode with Ken Rola. He's been on the show a couple times, a handful of times, and he's the guy behind the Rest Shield Scalar Energy pyramids that we sell, in the store, as well as the Vitalizer Plus that we have in the store too. So he's doing some really cool things over at, let me get his website. It's Fresh and Alive, but is that the best website? Yeah, freshandalive.com. And he's a natural health educator, researcher, inventor, from New Smyrna Beach, Florida. And he offers cutting-edge products, really unique products in his store, and services for regaining and optimizing health naturally using ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science. So he's doing some really, really cutting-edge stuff. He's into all kinds of interesting ideas. And so if you guys are interested in listening to this show on the website, it is extremehealthradio.com/518. Today is episode 518. We've been doing this show for, 4 years now. Amazing. Going to be 5 years pretty soon. Crazy. So it's just an honor to be here, and we're so glad to be here with Ken. Let me turn his mic up and turn this music down. Ken, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Oh, excellent. Thanks for being here today, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, how is Florida this time of year?
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah?
It's the weather's perfect. It's fairly dry this time of year, and it's just been nice.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, this would be the best time of year. I think I was there in a lot of years ago, 2001 or 2, but it was August and it was unbelievably hot.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, July, August, and September are the hot, muggy months.
Oh my gosh. Now, do you have AC, or do you believe in that, or?
Oh, I absolutely believe in air conditioning. The way I look at it is, if I was born 100 years ago, I wouldn't have it, so I might as well use it. But,
yeah,
so I do like it, but we don't, your blood thins out when you're in a warm climate, so we usually keep the thermostat up around 80. In the summertime, maybe 78.
Okay.
But
what about
it's beautiful now.
What about for sleep? Do you make it cold in your room when you go to sleep?
Not really. We keep it about the same when we sleep. We just use lighter blankets or sheets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seemed like every house that I went to when I was down there in August had AC. And it's funny because some people say, like, Daniel Vitalis has been on the show and he talked about artificially manipulating your environment to make it more comfortable for you. And he was talking about nerve health and how, if you can expose yourself to the cold of the environment, to the warmth of the environment, it's better for your nervous system and immune health, and to not use things like AC. But man, I don't know. If I were living in Florida, I think I'd be using AC myself.
Well, yeah, and Daniel's absolutely right. I mean, if we were living, when I've been camping out for extended periods, sometimes for a few weeks, and when you get acclimated to the environment, it doesn't feel really that hot or cold. It's like camping out in the summertime. Even in Florida, your blood thins out, you get used to it, and nighttime will seem cool.
Oh, okay.
So it's just a matter of acclimation, really. But when you're living in conventional houses, with the problem with living in a house is it absorbs a lot of heat during the day and then it radiates it outward at night.
Oh.
So it's actually warmer in a house than it would be if you were out in nature in a tent or something like that.
Yeah, I've been looking on Amazon lately, and I was thinking about during the summer months, because I really love it cold when I sleep, and I was thinking about maybe during the summer months getting a tent and putting it in our backyard and opening it up and getting fresh air and sleeping for a few months in the backyard.
Yeah, I do that in my yard. I absolutely love it.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
And
I absolutely love it.
like, do you do it on a regular basis? Do you feel more refreshed, or?
Yeah, I do it when I feel like I need to get out in nature. Usually when I've been traveling a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it also depends on the time of year, because we have an small airport nearby, and sometimes flight school over there will be just flying around the clock. And so when that's going on, I don't do it. But yeah, I was taught a long time ago that nature is the program that heals us. So I have to get out in nature, and I have to live around nature. I mean, I'm on 5 acres surrounded by nature, and so I get out there every day.
Yeah, it's becoming something for me. I was just thinking the other day about how interesting it would be if someone were able to do like some sort of a graph chart. If you were able to look at someone's life and correspond the amount of time they spend outside as a child and growing up, and then as their life proceeds and goes forward, the amount of time spent outside, I'm sure, diminishes with each passing year. We just tend to stay inside more and more as we get older for some reason. But then if you start correlating sickness and disease and things like that with the amount of time spent outside, I mean, I don't know if you can make a direct causative thing there, but I bet you there would be a lot of correlation there, wouldn't you think?
I would think so. I mean, I know my wife, she grew up in a city of, I think, 4 million people in Taiwan, very crowded, very polluted, and she most definitely does not feel the need to be out in nature like I do. I grew up around nature. I grew up on spending a lot of time on my grandmother's farm and out playing in the woods and in nature and playing with farm animals and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I have a need to be out around nature and with animals. Whereas my wife, it's like I have to walk out in our backyard at least every other day. Whereas my wife she could be inside for long periods of time. So I think definitely it's part of your programming. It's how you're raised. I
suspect there's something going on. You know how there's that, Rupert Sheldrake talks about that, the morphogenic field, and then there's also that you probably know what is called the Schumann resonance, right? The in between,
right?
And so I suspect that there's all kinds of forces and things going on when you're outside that you're just exposed to that we probably haven't even been able to measure yet.
Oh, absolutely. Well, for example, Victor Schauberger and other people have shown that, for example, trees and plants are scalar wave antennas. We've got this superluminal light energy coming from the cosmos, and it comes down to Earth along with conventional sunlight. And these plants are like antennas. They're actually fractal antennas that reach up into the sky and absorb this energy coming in and ground it into the earth. And then their root systems are antennas, also fractal antennas that reach into the ground and program the ground with frequencies, because the soil is mostly crystalline. So you've got this really, and then photosynthesis is this interdimensional process. It's not just chemistry. It's actually, there's interdimensional energetics going on there with this superluminal light that scientists are calling scalar energy. So when you're out amongst that, and also your body itself is a fractal antenna. You know, your nervous system is a fractal antenna, your lymph system, your blood system, your cells, everything is in your body is structured as an antenna. And even the cell membranes. Dr. Bruce Lipton and others have shown this looking at cells with electron microscopes, that there are these proteins that stick up on the membranes of cells that act like antennas for this scalar energy of consciousness, and that regulates functions inside of cells. So there's a lot going on when you're out in nature. And then it's known, for example, that the colors of nature go into the eyes and they will heal the endocrine glands, and particularly the thyroid. Sunlight will do that as well. So yeah, there's a lot of effects from being out in nature that we don't get when we're locked up inside of square boxes.
Yeah, I know, right? I've been doing my meditation outside and Qigong outside. We have a Qigong program that we do, and I do that outside as well. And I don't know what it is. You know, it's funny because like you can say all these scientific things about what's going on outside, and but it's just when you're outside, you just feel good. You know what I mean? It's just kind of it gets into you and you just feel, I don't know what it is. The more time I spend outside, the more time I crave spending outside, and the more benefit I think I get from it. It's pretty bizarre.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I used to do retreats, and I intend to do more in the future, but when I would hold retreats, I would require that people camp out, because I know that getting people out in nature completely, it's healing, but it also breaks their programming, and it makes them realize how disconnected from nature they are.
Oh, right.
And every time I would do that, people, you can go to my website at freshandalive.com and look at the testimonials page, and there are people there going, this was the best 5 days of my life. And it's just because they were eating food they were designed to eat. Yeah. They were out in nature, and they weren't under stress. You know, we didn't allow cell phones or any kind of EMF sources, and then we've also got all kinds of scalar devices around our property for protecting against EMF. So people don't even know what it's like anymore to live a natural life. And when they actually get into it, it's so blissful that they don't want it to end.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting. One of the things that we're trying to get the word out for people is this whole idea of getting outside and spending more time outside. But I always thought it was so interesting when, you drive by churches and things and, places of God, and, most of them are inside. And, I just think that's such a bizarre thing. Like, every church service or spiritual meeting, I think, should be outside somewhere. I mean, if possible.
They should. I'll tell you a little interesting thing, and I actually, if people want to see more details on this, I did a presentation which is on YouTube called, if you just search on my name, Ken Rola, Rohla, and Physics of Consciousness, you'll pull up this video I did, and it's a talk, and I get into the details of kind of how consciousness creates reality. And part of that is showing how, particularly in the olden times with conventional churches and cathedrals, how they were designed actually as scalar energy harvesting systems, so to speak. For example, the black and white tile floors on old Gothic cathedrals, those create what scientists call black body radiation. You can Google black body radiation, but what it really is, because they don't really have a name for it, it's superluminal light. It's this scalar energy. So just putting square tiles down will create black body radiation or scalar energy that will then radiate upward in the church. And that will act as a carrier wave for the human consciousness within the church, because human consciousness is also scalar energy. And so this energy is being funneled up into these structures of the church, the archways and the peaks and the roof and the steeple. All of that are scalar wave antennas that pick that energy up and funnel it into a vortex, which I believe non-physical entities feed off of. And I think that, based on my experience, I think that these old structures were designed intentionally for that very purpose of harvesting human energy for these non-physicals to feed off of, or let's say interdimensional extraterrestrials to feed off of, that were working with the powers that be on this planet. So there's always a lot more to anything than what we've been taught in school and what we're conventionally told.
Yeah, most definitely. So that's an interesting idea. So now, who would have been the people that would have known to do this, to build these structures this way, do you think?
Well, I think the people at the high levels of the church, for sure. But also, if you look at these secret societies throughout our history, the Knights Templar and the Masons and others, they have symbology in their symbols and in their literature showing knowledge of this. Now, they may not have been completely aware and understanding of the physics, but my impression is that they, through various methods, maybe through meditation, prayer, maybe even through extraterrestrial contact or something like that, they were given information and knowledge about how things work and the nature of matter and energy, and they figured out how to use it and manipulate it without particularly understanding all of the physics of it.
Yeah,
it's like Native Americans, for example. And there's a lot of, I know my own grandmother, she did certain things based on tradition. She didn't know anything about the real nature of it. She just knew that this was the tradition and things worked a certain way. And Native Americans and other Native people around the world, for example, have built dwellings that are circular shaped or cone shaped because those are scalar wave antennas. They didn't know that. They didn't necessarily know that that's what was going on. They knew the tradition, but somewhere along the line, that was introduced into their tradition by somebody who understood it.
Yeah, obviously somebody knew, because they could have, they have a bunch of different shapes they can choose from, so someone knows. Someone knew.
Yeah, and it, when you consider the conventional education and programming that we've had, particularly as Americans, that can sound preposterous, but for people who are regular meditators or who are into meditation, for example, or prayer, and really work with it, they will have an understanding that you can gain knowledge and information from wherever, whatever you want to call it, source, God, ETs, whatever you want to call it. You can gain practical knowledge and information that you could not gain necessarily otherwise. I've done this, for example, with out-of-body experiences. I've had in dream state and in meditations, I've been able to go places and see things and then confirm in the waking state that those things were actually there, things that I had no way of knowing that were there. So we have this ability, and we have been directed away from it, and we have lost it for the most part. For most people, they're not used to using both hemispheres of the brain and combining the intuitive with the logical mind, because you need both. We do need logical, empirical evidence and proof and that kind of stuff, but we also need the intuition to bring the information in to begin with.
Yeah, it's so true. Kate and I, my wife, were just talking about this recently, about whether or not there's a conspiratorial active plan on the part of whoever runs this whole system. Do you think that all of the TV shows and the media and getting people into debt and going to school and getting programmed, do you think all of that is sort of designed as a whole to be a certain way? Or do you think that each one of those entities is like just out there to make some money, and they understand that if they can keep people addicted to the next commercial break, they can get them through the commercial and they could make money? Do you think that there's a grander plan behind it all as a whole? Or do you think that each of those are sort of acting individually?
Well, I think it's both, because, for example, when I worked in the medical system, the people in the medical system that were sustaining this unsustainable system of drugs and surgery, and particularly for degenerative illness, and I'm not knocking the medical system per se, it's just that the medical system is really good at dealing with acute injury, but they're horrible at dealing with degenerative injury because their industry has been manipulated by the drug industry and the medical technology industries and others. And so just within that industry, when I was working with it, I saw all of these very well-intentioned people who were completely ignorant of natural methods of healing, nutrition and things like that. And it was by design on the big scale, on the macro scale, because, for example, nutrition is kept out of medical doctors' training. And in general, herbology and natural methods and things have historically been kept out of the medical system since its founding, because those methods are viewed as not as profitable as, conventional medical techniques using drugs and surgery and that kind of stuff. So just within that realm, there's this lack of awareness among well-meaning people who are perpetuating a system that's not sustainable and doesn't work well for degenerative illness. And yet they all believe that they're doing good for the population because of their programming and their beliefs. And increasingly that programming beliefs is changing, very slowly and begrudgingly. And so that's kind of a metaphor for what's going on this planet. You've got people at the upper echelons of power throughout history who have an understanding of the true nature of our reality, or I'd say a better understanding of it, and of matter and energy and science and physics and all sorts of things.
Right.
And they have intentionally kept the masses misdirected through systems. Basically, they put in place systems that have evolved over time and become more sophisticated to keep people's awareness limited in a paradigm that benefits them, that they can profit off of, that they can feed off of, and that they can control. And so within that system, you've got this self-reinforcing education and programming, through the education system that's very controlled. For example, it's like, when I went through engineering school in electrical engineering, and I was taught certain things, and I believed it completely. And it wasn't until I got out and I started bumping into people with technologies that defied what I was taught in school, and I had to explore that and understand it. And of course, at first I didn't believe it. But over a period of decades, I learned more and more about the true nature of matter and energy, and this physics that is not, it's not being taught in schools, and in fact, it's being sequestered away by military scientists and others, and people who have discovered it. So we've basically got this history of control and manipulation at a macro scale, and then self-reinforcement of programming through social mores and through our education system and those kinds of things. And then you've got a small minority of people who, for whatever reasons, are using their right brain and their intuitive empathic abilities to gain other information and discernment and kind of sort through what's true and what's not. And this is something I've been teaching for many years, is the importance of people to learn about trauma-based mind control, to learn about how to recognize and identify and break their programming and expand their awareness and become more free and more abundant, more happy, more healthy, and all of that.
Yeah, because there's definitely ways to do that, depending on how we live our lives. It's fascinating to me that no matter what sort of, I don't know what the right term is, not industry, but what sort of sector you get into in the world, like, if you're studying science, for example, or you're studying engineering like you were, or if you're studying health, conventional health, which would be the medical model, or history or math, it's so fascinating that we're taught one thing, but when you really dive deep and understand that, so much more of what's going on, you start realizing that every sort of sector of our lives is some sort of made up, reality that they're giving to us that may not necessarily be true, because you got into engineering, and then I'm sure as a result of that got into health and everything else. And some people get into it from history, some people get into it from, all manner of different subject matter disciplines. But it's interesting that you can just sort of cross into any number of areas of life and realize that we haven't really been told, what's actually going on. It's pretty bizarre. It's
very true. Well, for example, Dr. Samir Osmanagic in Bosnia discovered the largest pyramids in the world. They eclipsed the Egyptian pyramids in size, and for many years people thought they were mountains because they were so large and they were covered with trees and grass and dirt.
Where was this?
And he's the Bosnian pyramids.
Bosnian, that's right. Yeah, I've seen pictures of those things.
Yeah, they're huge. They're absolutely huge. I mean, they're the size of mountains. And like I said, they're so big, nobody believed they were pyramids. And he excavated them and has gone deep inside of them, and he's discovered all these obviously man-made structures within them. I mean, tunnel walls that with laid stone like brick and things that clearly are not natural formations. And yet there are some shill archaeologists who apparently are being paid to say that these pyramids are just natural structures, and that Dr. Osmanagic is full of it, and that, you know, that he's not doing real science and that kind of stuff. And and it's you know, and this happens in every field. There are extremely well credentialed people in every branch of sciences that have have incredible credentials, sometimes Nobel Prize winners, that are coming out and discovering the true nature of things. And the moment that, you know, they may have impeccable credentials and be revered in their fields, and the moment they come out with something that goes against the orthodoxy, all of a sudden they become quacks.
Yeah,
which is nonsense.
A guy that was doing this was, I'm sure you know of him, John Anthony West, from doing all the work with the. He did a really great documentary series called Magical Egypt. And he's not a conventional archaeologist, but he went into Egypt, 30 years ago and started really doing some research and started finding that everything that he was learning about went against the conventional archaeology. And he created this documentary DVD series called Magical Egypt, which is amazing. But that's sort of, like you said, it goes on in every field. It's bizarre.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Roger Penrose, who is he's not a Nobel Prize winner, but he's the next closest thing to it. He works with Stephen Hawking at Oxford. He's a highly respected Oxford University physicist, and he's saying that what we believe about physics is fundamentally flawed and wrong. And he butts heads quite often with Stephen Hawking.
Wow.
There's a Nobel Prize winner named Dan Shechtman who discovered what are called quasicrystals, which are crystalline structures that, according to conventional physics, are absolutely impossible. That, it completely destroys our understanding of the matter of nature and energy, and yet they exist, and he's proven it. And there's many people like that.
So with a guy like him, what was the last name of this last guy you mentioned?
Daniel Shechtman, Shechtman. Now,
with a guy like that, would there be, like, if he were able to get his ideas out there more, what would be the effect on the mainstream industry that he's in, science and things that he's in?
Well, it would totally destroy the oil industry. It would create free energy industries. It would create all kinds of new technologies that would destroy existing paradigms. The guy's a Nobel Prize winner. How much more credentials do you need, number one? And why isn't that all over the news? It's not like it's beyond the public's understanding.
Right.
I mean, all you got to do is say, hey, look, this guy discovered these crystal formations that destroys our whole understanding of matter and energy and physics.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so... that rarely happens, but
so here's my question when it comes to all this stuff, and I think of it in terms of cannabis. When during our last show we were talking about, I think, cannabis a little bit. So my disconnect here is I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, if you're the mainstream medical association, and you understand that there's even outside of the medical uses of cannabis, there's over 5,000 uses for this plant, and so it's an incredibly powerful plant and therefore very political. But my question is, it's gonna, in my opinion, it's gonna become more and more legal as time goes on, because it's just, you're gonna be on the wrong side of history if you're still trying to make this plant illegal. But what I can't understand is these people are creative people. Isn't there a way? I'm just trying to think of, a purely capitalistic and a really negative mindset, and think, like, isn't there a way for them to regulate it or make tons of money off of it and still propagandize people and tell people that it's only good for the effects of chemotherapy and it can't cure you? And can't they get into the game and use some of their creativity to, if it were allowed to be legal, to still profit from it? Like, can't they A lot of people say they can't patent plants, but why can't they just change those rules? I mean, there's got to be a way for them to get in the game, don't you think?
Oh, well, they are. Monsanto has genetically modified cannabis that they intend to bring out. And I suspect that part of the reason why cannabis is becoming more legalized in various states is partially because, I mean, obviously it's from the hard work of a lot of people, but I think also it's partially because the drug industry and the chemical industries recognize that it's a matter of time before it comes out. And so they're looking at selling GMO pot that will have certain effects that they desire. But you have to understand that, the moment that you come out with a whole plant, I highly doubt they'll come out with a whole plant. They'll come out with some kind of extract or something. Because if you come out with whole plant cannabis, even if it's GMO, that implies the paradigm of herbology. That implies this paradigm of using whole plants, and the drug industry, which spends tons of money synthesizing chemicals that mimic what they observe in plants, absolutely they won't make as much money, number one, because some of these drugs have tens of thousands of % markup. It's just insane how expensive some of these drugs are compared to what they actually take to make, even factoring in the R&D that goes into it and the regulations that go into it. So it's a paradigm shift that they don't want people to even think about. And so it's kind of like they're not going to do it until they're begrudgingly yanked into it.
Do you think there's any way for them to, like, you were just talking about how they can sell drugs for, I mean, golly, the profit margin is incredible, thousands of %. Would there be a way for them to do the same thing with cannabis, do you think?
Yeah, and I think what that paradigm will be, from what I'm seeing, is that they'll use GMO pot, claiming that it's superior, and then they'll use extracts of it. They won't use the whole plant.
Okay.
They'll use some kind of highly proprietary extract and say that it's, whiz-bang better than the whole plant.
What about other aspects of using cannabis, like, concrete and clothing? It seems to me that, I mean, I don't know anything about the concrete industry, but if I were in the concrete industry and I had the full ability to be able to be creative with my ideas and business model, I would get in on that, because I mean the benefits of hempcrete, as they call it, are much better than regular concrete, and you know what I mean? So there's got to be some reasons why they're just so crippled and unable to pursue these things.
That's coming. That's coming very quickly. In 2014, U.S. Congress legalized industrial hemp, and they defined industrial hemp legally as cannabis that has 0.3% or less THC in it.
Okay.
So there are more and more hemp products coming on the market, and that's why you're seeing a lot more awareness of not just hemp but medical marijuana, because the medical marijuana industry realized, well, hey, if we can hybridize cannabis and drop the THC below 0.3%, then we can still sell it with high CBD and sell it as a medical product. And that's exactly what's been going on. You can legally buy in all 50 states now what they're calling hemp extracts or hemp paste, which technically is legally defined as industrial hemp, but it's medical marijuana without the THC. It's, like 24%, 25% CBD, which is very, very healing. Now, definitely, if the THC was in there, it would be even more healing, particularly if you're using an heirloom variety of cannabis where the THC and the CBD ratios to each other are optimal for not just healing, but also the spiritual aspect of it. And I don't mean getting high, because you can actually eat uncooked cannabis with the THC in it and you will not get high, but you will have expanded awareness and consciousness. And I'm finding even with the CBD and the hemp paste that I'm using, which is the whole plant of the legal hemp, medical hemp, that stuff definitely has spiritual aspects to it. I find that I'm much more aware and much calmer, and I actually crave meditation and things that I didn't before taking it.
Yeah,
so
it's really, really fascinating too, because I wonder myself, is there a concerted effort for the powers that be to get us to be disconnected from ourselves. Because when you think about having a spiritual aspect to your life and sort of looking within, right, and not asking so many people, perceived authority figures questions about what you should do with your health or with your life, take this job, take that job. When you can really meditate and get quiet and get clear, you start trusting your own gut, your own intuition. And if everyone in the world did that, maybe people would be, I'm sure it would be a different world that we live in. And we wouldn't always be thinking that the guy in the white lab coat has all the answers to my health challenges. It would be a completely different world.
Exactly. And studies have been done showing that people who are taking cannabis cannot be mind controlled. They cannot, trauma-based mind control techniques do not work on them because it opens up the pineal gland, the third eye, and awareness to a larger reality. And that's exactly it. That's one of the acid tests for whether somebody or something is truly empowering is, does it put the empowerment on you, and does it make you reliant on yourself rather than some outside source?
Yeah.
All of these things that the powers that be put out are designed to confuse people about their own power, about their own discernment, to keep them focused on 3D things like television or whatever, and not going within and not connecting with source and developing discernment and guidance, internal discernment and guidance. And like I say, for those who are logically minded, you can empirically prove that your right brain or your empathic, intuitive mind is actually giving you correct information. You can. I've done this years ago. I did it through dream states by recording my dreams the moment I would wake up, and I would usually wake up several times in the middle of the night, and I would have a voice recorder right next to my bed. I would record my dreams, and I would see over time what I was dreaming about. I also discovered how to do out-of-body experiences where I could go places and see things, and then I could confirm with people over the phone that were there what I actually saw. And I got to the point where I would actually do out-of-bodies and go to where I worked at nighttime when the cleaning people were there. And I would see them cleaning, and then I would talk to them during the day when I would see them and say, hey, did you do this or that? And they were like, they'd be shocked. How did you know?
Oh my gosh. That's kind of like when people have, when they have out-of-body experiences when they die, they can see the doctors working on them and all that. That's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, I've had that happen. I was in a motorcycle wreck and I left my body and was going up toward the proverbial tunnel of light. And so it confirmed within me personally for certain that our bodies are just a container for our consciousness. Yeah. But if you really think about it and you study this kind of stuff, you can empirically deduce a lot of proof showing that this stuff is true. And of course, even if you don't have those abilities, you can go to people that do have those abilities, and you can confirm it that way as well.
And don't you think that these abilities are probably innate within us, but they've been sort of squashed down? And we probably all have these abilities if you just put together a spiritual practice and stay disciplined on it for some time. I suspect that anybody can do these things, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's when you understand, and this is one of the things I talk about in this video on YouTube about the physics of consciousness, is that we are antennas for God consciousness, or source energy, or scalar waves, whatever you want to call it. This energy coming from the center of our cosmos, this superluminal light, it's flowing through the cosmos. It's being relayed from the suns, from sun to sun to sun, outward from the center of the galaxy, outward, and it comes down to us from our sun. And also the planets all have these singularities, or these black holes at their centers, that act as relays for this energy as well. So the whole cosmos is this web of this energy flowing through this web of planets and suns. And so it's coming to us from the center of the earth, and it's coming down from the sun. And then our bodies, which are fractal antennas, pick it up. And within our bodies, we've got the DNA, which is loaded up with these superconducting minerals, known as Ormus minerals. That creates, superconductivity creates the DNA's ability to act as an antenna and pick up this God consciousness flowing through the cosmos. And also the neural pathways in the body, the neural pathways in the brain, and the acupuncture meridians and along the spine. There are large acupuncture meridians. Those are nodes of these superconducting minerals, and they are essentially like little antennas or black holes for this energy to flow in and out of. Mm-hmm. And hence all of these disciplines in Ayurveda or Chinese medicine revolving around the meridians or the nadis, as they call them in Ayurveda, mm-hmm. and the flow of the chi. It's because we're antennas picking up this energy, and it flows in and out of us, and then we, with our minds and our brains and our nervous systems, radiate it outward and attract this reality, and this is kind of how we create our reality. So
if it's in that model of looking at how our bodies are working and interacting with the environment, what's causing people to have their DNA not be able to interact with these scalar waves? And
well, when you eat food, number one, if you eat food that human beings aren't designed to eat, which means anything cooked pretty much, you can get away with a little bit of cooked food, maybe around 20% or so, but when you eat too much cooked food, that creates acid and toxins that will clog up those meridians and those pathways and lower the superconductivity in the body, so that lessens the mind-body connection. When you hear medical doctors talk about the mind-body connection, well, if there really is one, there has to be a mechanism, and it's in these superconducting minerals, in the meridians, the brain neural pathways, the DNA, and such. And so this consciousness energy flows in and out there. So eating toxic GMO food, eating food full of pesticides and poisons that we have in our environment now, that will clog up those meridians and lower the superconductivity. The pollutants we breathe in, pollutants in our water, all of that stuff shuts down the superconductivity. Mm-hmm. Genetically modified food also shuts down the superconductivity, and it also alters the genetic expression that we have. And so all of that, it also calcifies the cooked food particularly calcifies the pineal gland, which is our interface to the non-physical realms. Mm. So all of this stuff shuts down our intuitive abilities and our empathic abilities, and that is by design at the higher levels of awareness.
That's interesting. So as a result of that, then we'd be more prone to the programming that comes through media and advertisements and all of that, because if you're disconnected from yourself in that way, then you're going to be you have to be getting some sort of input from something or some person. If it's not you, it's going to be some other. They're going to take the place of who it should be, which is all of us, right?
Exactly. It really depends on your beliefs. If you believe that we are just basically a bag of chemicals and all of this this chemistry and matter is creating all of our thoughts, then you're going to have a hard time believing that you can tap into any kind of external source of knowledge and information. But again, I tested this empirically years ago when I was first introduced in my 20s to the concept that we create our reality. I kind of always intuitively believed that, but I thought, well, if this is true, then I should be able to prove it. And so I started doing experiments and observations and seeing, observing my beliefs and meditating and becoming clear about what my fundamental beliefs were, particularly my unconscious beliefs, which usually it takes help from an outside source to uncover what your unconscious beliefs are around things. Mm-hmm. And then also observing the beliefs of others around me and seeing what their reality was like. And what I observed over and over and over again was that whatever we believed was exactly what we got. I had a friend, for example, who believed that life was a series of ups and downs, and that's exactly what he got. Wow. I believe that my life will always get better and better, and it always has. And so, by observing these kinds of things and studying it, and then also I did a lot of dream state work, like I said, where I would record my dreams and then over time look at patterns and things in my dreams. Meditation, where you can get information and then you can confirm it, particularly these days in the days of the computer and Google. I mean, my gosh, if you know to ask the question, there's going to be an answer most likely out there on the internet. So you use discernment, you collect information and data, and you discover your own truths based on that. The more aware you are, the more you're going to understand about the nature of your reality, and the easier it is going to be to navigate through it then.
Yeah.
And the more fun, by the way.
Oh gosh, I know, right? I mean, it's interesting that all of this stuff that we learn through podcasts like this. I know you do a ton of podcasts and shows, and we have to go on the internet and learn this kind of stuff. But I mean, it makes sense because, if you are ultimately in control of your life and how you view your life and how your life is going to play out. And so, if you have a negative mindset about that, or a feeling of lack about, the things you're able to produce in your life, then your life's going to reflect that. It makes sense.
Exactly. And, and there is a lot of, let's say, misguided information out there. And so we do need good old-fashioned, logical, scientific proof and evidence of things. But the problem with science these days is that it's really become a religion of what gets funded. It's not true. Empirical science is rarely done these days. It's usually science that has an agenda that's being funded by somebody who wants to understand something for a certain outcome. And so a lot of times, particularly with, the drug industry and things like that, I mean, it's being uncovered more and more how the drug industry will just fabricate science and spend a lot of money doing it so that they can create and sell more drugs. And so we live in an era of that. And that confuses the issue a lot more for people. And that's why we have to develop this combination of the empathic right brain function of our minds along with the logical left brain, because we need them both. We absolutely need them both.
So the right brain is also about creativity, is correct?
Right. Creativity comes from the right hemisphere of the brain. It comes from the creative, the intuitive, empathic part of the mind. And I know years ago when, I was in computer science and engineering years ago, and I decided to get out of that and become a potter. And so
That's a funny transition.
Oh, I know. It was funny when I went to my CEO and I said, look, I want you to fire me and rehire me as a consultant, and I'll, I can work fewer hours. I'll make the same amount of money, but it'll save you all this money and benefits and stuff. Right. And so he said, okay. He said, why are you doing this? I said, well, I want to become a potter. And he said, what's a potter? it was so far out of his reality. I said, it's somebody that makes pottery. And he goes, oh, I thought that was some kind of technical term, because he couldn't conceive of this highly paid technical guy chucking it all and becoming a potter.
That is so funny. That's so interesting.
But in the course of doing that, I found that when I started out, I really had to, when I was down in my studio creating new pots or new objects, I had to be in right brain creative mode. And then at the end of the day, when I would go upstairs into my office and have to do paperwork and left brain stuff, it'd take me a good half an hour to get into left brain logical mode.
Wow.
And over time, I got much better at it, so I can switch between them very easily now. But there's very definitely that dichotomy of functions, and we can absolutely develop them. And the more that you develop both of them, quite honestly, people that have developed them both really well, we typically call them geniuses. Mm-hmm. They're just people that can use the intuitive along with the empirical.
So really in terms of like being empathetic, like an empath, and using creativity, I'm curious about the empathic part, because in my life, I mean, I'm 41 years old, and I can't tell you how many people I know in my life right now that have cancer, either my age, younger, or older. It's crazy, all of this cancer that's going on. And so I'm a very empathic person. I don't like seeing anyone diagnosed with cancer or any disease. I mean, that's part of the reason why I started this show, because of my mom's story. And I really feel for people, and it really, like, if I get into their story and my wife tells me about who they are, and I get bummed out for them, and I don't even know these people. And obviously that lowers my vibration, it lowers my energy, and I know that's going on. But how do we prevent, it's important to have feelings and be emotional for people, but what are your thoughts about not letting that overtake you and having that clear boundary?
Well, when you do the kind of work that I've done where you're dealing with a lot of sick people, you have to develop an impartiality without losing your compassion. And that takes training and experience in doing it. It's very easy when you're starting out as a healer to want to heal everybody in the world and to want to solve everybody's problems. And a lot of healers that are inexperienced will take on people's pain and take on their issues and things, and you cannot do that and function well. I mean, you'll wind up destroying yourself. And so you have to learn how to be compassionate and yet also be detached enough to not let it bring you down. And this is what, a lot of great teachers have taught, for example, about meditation, is being impartial and being the observer, and yet not to the point where you lose compassion for yourself or others. And that's a balancing act. There's very much an art to it. Because it's very often, I've been in cultures where, let's say, for example, in India, where they believe in karma and they believe that if you're suffering in this lifetime, it's because you did something negative in another lifetime. And even if that's true, that doesn't relieve me of compassion for those people and the desire to help them.
Right.
Now, if they don't want that help, if they're not interested, that's fine. But that too many people use that as an excuse to dismiss the suffering of others. And I think the more advanced souls that I've encountered, that is definitely not the case. It's like the more developed the people and beings that I've encountered, the more developed they are consciously, the more compassionate they are. And also, by the way, the funnier they are too. They tend to have a really good sense of humor.
Yeah. It's funny. Compassion and having compassion and not letting it overtake you, because there's a sense of when someone in your life is going through something really, really challenging, like a sickness or disease. There's a, for me, I've been able to sort of look at that and say, well, that's part of their journey, and that's part of the reason why they're here, and you kind of get a bigger perspective of it, and that helps as well, because when you feel like all you do is you sort of just think about how sad it is that so-and-so is passing away or has a disease or has a diagnosis. If you don't have a bigger picture, but then also too, you don't want to go too far on the other side where you just, like you said, you lose all compassion altogether. So that little dance there is really kind of challenging. I think it'd be really challenging to be a healer, man. That would be crazy.
Well, experienced healers, they develop the discernment, so it's not a big deal. I've done a lot of past life regression work. I call it simultaneous life, because time is simultaneous. It's not past and future, so to speak. We just perceive it that way. But in exploring other lifetimes and other places of mine, and I found a very, very strong emotional connection to some of them. For example, I saw myself in a past life one time where I was a British militiaman on a nobleman's estate, and I was very low on the totem pole in the militia. So I would go out, I would be on the front of a phalanx, which are the guys that get killed the first. And I saw myself going and raping and pillaging villages when we would get into enemy territory, and I saw very vividly myself chopping off arms and limbs and heads of women and children and doing all kinds of horrible things.
Oh, wow.
And it had such a strong impact on me, I cried for days. And then later I went and saw the movie Braveheart, and I couldn't sit through the whole movie because it reminded me too much of that lifetime.
Oh, my God.
So having done a lot of regression work like that and having these strong emotional connections to them, it has taught me that we've had all kinds of different lifetimes, some of them suffering, some of them not. But when you have an understanding that this is not the only reality there is, and that we go through all of these lifetimes to grow and to learn and experience what it is to be human and to be physical, then it gives you more compassion and understanding of the nature of people's lives, including your own, here on Earth. It gives you a broader perspective.
Right.
And so for having done all these kinds of things, it allows me to work with people or in an emergency situation. I've also worked in hospital emergency rooms too, which is also good preparation. But all of this training has allowed me to be around very, very sick people and not be afraid of getting sick, even if it's contagious, of not, not being afraid of blood and gore and guts, and being able to act calm and coolly in emergencies or when people are very, very sick and getting them what they need to get well. And it just comes with experience.
Yeah, that's a really good balance that sounds like you have. Hey, you were telling me on email that you just got back from the conference in North Carolina, the Past Life Conference. How was that?
It was a class. It was a small class of 11 people.
Oh, really?
And it was hosted by a teacher from Damanhur, which is a really amazing intentional community in Italy that was started back in the 70s by a man named Falco, who was an absolute genius. He died a couple of years ago, but he was developing scalar energy technology for healing and other uses back in the 70s. Amazing, brilliant guy. Wow. So they have some very advanced spiritual teachers, and this one lady was teaching a past life class, and so I did that class. And in that particular class, I saw myself as I guess you would say an Eskimo woman. But this was before recorded history, so it was very early on in Earth's history when there weren't that many people on the planet. And I was living far north of Europe where it was just ice and snow, and seeing how that life unfolded and how it influenced my life now.
Wow, that's amazing. So it was only for 2 days?
It was 2 days.
Wow, that's crazy.
And basically they send you through this process of meditation and like painting. We would intuit and paint pictures of who we saw ourselves as. And the interesting thing was, for me, visualization of past lives is very easy. I can tune into past lives very quickly and very easily. But I didn't want to tune into this one because it was not an easy life. It was in a bitter, bitter cold. There was no trees or grass to speak of. And so, survival depended on you being able to produce. So in that culture, for example, people typically didn't live to an old age, and when they became feeble and they could no longer contribute to the tribe, they were suicided, basically. They either committed suicide or they were assisted in suicide because the environment was so harsh. So, wow. So those kinds of things, when you experience that and that kind of a difficult life, that can influence you through other lifetimes if you don't heal it and clear it. And so I've done that on many occasions, clearing issues from former lifetimes. And it's interesting because even if it's just all a game in your mind, the bottom line is, in the end, you become a much more balanced, saner, happier person when that happens.
Right. You were saying in the email that a psychic told you that you were Galileo in a past life. Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but it makes a lot of sense considering some of the things I've been involved in. Oh, that's so funny.
And also some of my viewpoints. I would say, it jives with that, with what Galileo would experience.
That's funny. Do you think that part of what we're doing here is to advance, I guess, the consciousness of our own self or the entire world? Do you think that, like, for example, Galileo, maybe he wasn't able to accomplish everything that he was specifically sent here to do, and so that's why people can be like a reincarnation of someone? Do you think?
That can be the case. I don't know if that's the case with Galileo. I do know, of course, that he would have done far more had he not been house arrested by the Catholic Church. He was a heretic by saying that the Earth and the planets revolved around the sun rather than the whole universe revolving around the Earth. Mm-hmm. The Catholic Church didn't like him at all, and they were constantly at odds with him to the point where they threatened to kill him, and they wound up putting him under house arrest. But he invented the telescope. He made all kinds of brilliant inventions that proved the nature of our reality was not what the church and the officials were saying it was. Which is pretty much the same these days. Right. We may know more about the nature of reality, but we're still in the dark about a lot of things, and it's still being suppressed in the same ways.
Right.
But yeah, I imagine that Galileo would have done far, far more had he been encouraged rather than suppressed.
Oh my goodness. Hey, Ken, I have to go to the bathroom really quickly. We're going to take a little break. When we come back, do you want to answer a couple questions?
Sure.
Okay, that'd be great. Can you hold on for 1 sec?
Sure.
Excellent. I have to say, I have been absolutely loving this product by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar called Good Morning, Good Evening Qigong. If you want to listen to the interview we did with Tristan, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/127. And Qigong is a great way to de-stress the body. And as you know, there's a huge component to disease caused by stress. And stress is a huge factor in how we live our lives and the amount of energy we have and the amount of vitality we have. And so, Dr. Shade, what do you think about Qigong?
People come to me and they're really sick and they got this blown out neurological system and all this toxicity. And I tell them, you need to do Qigong, Tai Chi. You need to do these things that settle down and restore your neurology, because it puts together all the parts. It puts you back into that state where you can start to detoxify. And so I highly, highly recommend all that.
And what about you, Kit Campbell? What do you think about Qigong? Do you like it as well?
Qigong is amazing. And the reason that I believe it to be amazing is everything here is energy. That is a scientific fact, if there ever is one. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually drawing energy into your body. Your intention, whatever your intention is behind any action, will determine the level of energy, type of energy that you absorb into your body. So your intention behind is very important, just like thought. So when you're practicing Qigong, you're actually bringing energy in and you're bringing out the stuff that might be a bit stale. With Tai Chi, it's totally different. The energy runs underneath the skin because it's more of a martial. This is the Chinese understanding, by the way. It's more of a martial art. So Qigong is very, very good for bringing that energy into the body, and just fantastic.
If you're interested in picking up this Qigong course by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar, go to extremehealthradio.com/Qigong. That's QIGONG. And you can learn more about it. There's a great video on that page, and you can learn more about it on that page. And I highly, highly recommend this product. I love it myself, so go ahead and check that out. extremehealthradio.com/Qigong. Okay, Ken, are you there?
I am.
Excellent. Sorry about that. Before the show, I drank a big green juice, and I was hoping that...
Yeah, I've been there.
Hey, speaking of that, have you ever done, I'm sure you've done urine therapy, right?
No.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I don't have the bravery to do that.
Oh, okay.
As far as drinking it or using it in my eyes, no. I know about it. I've known people that have done it, but...
Yeah, I do it every day in the morning, and it's funny because I feel like when you... I dilute it, so I don't drink it straight. You know, I'm still grossed out by it myself. But I feel like when you drink it, it goes through you like twice as fast as if you just drink water. It's crazy.
Could be. Yeah, and now that you mention it, I actually did do urine therapy once against my wishes without knowing it. I was in junior high school, and I was helping a friend of mine do his paper route, and being the little monsters that we were, we had beers hidden all around his paper route in water meters down in the ground,
Oh, wow.
And so we were drinking a beer from one of these water meters, and he said, "Hey, would you like to try malt liquor?" I was like, "What's malt liquor?" And he said, "Oh, it's kind of like beer, but it's a lot stronger. It's got more alcohol." I said, "Yeah, sure." So we wound up going to one of his other water meters where he had a malt liquor hidden, and he says, "Now this is not like beer, if you don't like it, you don't drink it." I said, "Okay, fine." So I unscrew the twist off cap and I pop it back and take a big guzzle.
Oh my gosh.
And he goes, "What does it taste like?" I said, "That's interesting. It's not fizzy and it tastes like barley water." And then of course he busts out laughing and he tells me it's his urine.
Oh my gosh.
And I beat him up like you wouldn't believe. So, inadvertently, I guess I have had a little bit of urine therapy.
Oh, my gosh, that's hilarious. Oh, man. It's funny how detailed your memory is of that, such a traumatic experience.
Yeah, I think, I think if you drink piss, you're going to remember it.
Well, they say that part of being in the womb is where we've all drank it by nature being in the womb,
Yeah.
That's funny. Wow. Yeah, we had a guy on a while back, a couple of years ago. He was doing a whole documentary about it, and he was talking about, he's from Australia. I forget his name. This was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but he was talking about how he uses it, and he does baths with it and puts it in his bath, and he said if you open up his fridge, he's got just mason jars full of it, and he uses it in all these different kind of weird, unique ways, and I just thought, oh my gosh.
Well, the great thing about it is if you're stranded with nothing, you can always use your urine. Gandhi used it throughout his life, so it's definitely a powerful way of detoxing and healing. It's just that I've got other tools at my disposal that I would rather use.
I hear that. There's a guy I was listening to recently, a former guest on our show, Tony Pantelleresco, and he was talking about urine therapy. And he said that one of the things you want to make sure to be aware of when you're doing urine therapy is these nanoparticles. And are you familiar with those? He said you can see those in your urine, but I was thinking to myself as I was listening to him that if they're nano and they're tiny, you wouldn't really be able to see those. But he was saying that urine therapy could be dangerous because of this sort of new thing called nano. Do you know about that?
Yeah, I don't know that you could see nanoparticles. The nanoparticles I'm familiar with, you need a microscope to see, but
that's what I thought.
But and nanoparticles is just one of many things that can be in your urine. Radioactive elements can be in your urine these days. Of course, all kinds of god-awful toxins, GMO bugs, all kinds of things can come out in your urine. So Tony's right from that standpoint. Because I don't even contemplate urine therapy, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
But I use methods for getting those things out of the body. And Tony also talks about ways of doing that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because when you talk about aspects of dietary healing from different people, it's funny because we've had people say on our show that they're very much pro animal products. They think that we should be eating more animal products, but they say that you have to really, like, if you read some of these old timer books, they talk about, eating a certain way and it's the best way ever. But he was saying that even though he thinks the human body needs animal products, he would never touch an animal product in this culture, in this society. So it's one of those things where, if you hear people say urine therapy is the greatest thing ever, and their book is 100 years old, perhaps the environment at that time, there was probably no chemtrails, no nanoparticles, and these types of things. So although it could be correct to say that we were meant to eat animals and we need to have animal products, if you go with that and assume that's correct, it may not be correct today because of our environment. So there's this whole weird environmental sort of time applied to these dietary platitudes, I think.
Well, that's very true. Eating anything these days is not healthy for you, sad to say. All of our food's got nuclear fallout on it. Even if you're eating organic, you're going to have that coming down on your food. And then you've got geoengineering pollutants coming down on your food. And then you've got genetically modified microbes that are being used in the environment for various purposes that are coming down. And so you're getting all of these weird diseases and superbugs, Morgellons disease, and all of these so-called superbugs, which are typically GMO cross-domain organisms and things. So yeah, we've got this whole crazy array of threats to our health that we didn't have 100 years ago. So this is why that I teach, food and water and all of the tried and true things have to be a foundation of our health. But we have to do some extraordinary things now because we have these extraordinary threats to our health. And so just doing food and juice, or whether you're eating animal products or not, is somewhat irrelevant because, there have been cultures that could live off of a vegan diet long term just fine. So it can be done. But these were in cultures that were in environments where they had highly mineralized food and water, and they were also pristine environments, and we don't have that anymore on this planet. So in my experience trying to be vegan, I was vegan for 18 years or more, and I found that when I started hitting my 50s, my bone density was dropping, and the only thing that brought it around was raw butter and fermented dairy. Now, even with that said, the problem with animal products of any kind is that whatever toxins are in their environment is going to be concentrated in higher doses in their tissue or their fluids. So even if you're eating animal products, like Weston Price, for example, he did some study, and I think his information is valid, about the need for animal fats to deliver minerals to the teeth and bones. And in fact, I know the big raw food gurus in the world, the living foods gurus, I know these guys, and I know their health. I know secrets about them that they don't talk about publicly, and I know that they all have teeth and bone issues. And so I think Weston Price's information in our times is probably correct about the need to have some animal fats. I think you could do it on a vegan diet if you were growing your own food and you were in control of that. But with that said, I look at, for example, my grandmother who grew up on a farm. Even eating meat, they were raising all their own food, and they could not afford to eat meat more than once or twice a week because it's expensive to feed and care for an animal. So they were predominantly vegetarians to begin with.
That's interesting. Now, there's a guy on our show, you're probably familiar with him, Stephen Hure, and he does the Synergistic Nutrition website, and he talks about, a lot of the same stuff you're talking about. I don't think he really eats meat anymore, but he does, animal products. Like, he'll do the elk velvet antler, he'll do eggs, he'll do colostrum and butter and things like that. Is that kind of how you eat these days, do you think?
Yeah, I do eat some eggs, locally grown eggs from neighbors, and I do eat raw Amish butter. Fortunate, one of the local health food stores sells raw Amish butter, so I'll eat that occasionally, maybe once or twice a week, I would say on average, with the butter. The eggs less frequently. And I am growing a lot of my own food, so I'm getting stuff on my food. I'm also growing in ways that people aren't even aware of. I'm growing, with Ormus elements and scalar fields and doing all kinds of stuff. I've got, for example, in my greenhouse, I've got tomato plants 10 feet tall that are just loaded with nutrient-dense tomatoes. Oh, gosh, so I'm doing extraordinary stuff, but also understanding that all of this, in the food we buy from health food stores or whatever, and these animal products are going to have higher doses of radioactive elements and toxins in them. So I take a cocktail every day of nutrients and detoxifiers.
Oh, I see.
And everybody needs to be doing that. Everybody needs to be detoxing on a daily basis, as well as getting nutrients in their body to compensate for the lack of them in their food. Even organic food doesn't have the level of nutrients that we need and that should have.
Yeah, because organic really just means, not sprayed with pesticides and chemicals. It doesn't mean the soils are really that great, right?
Yeah, it means that they have to adhere to the USDA guidelines in the United States, which is a joke. And there are certain toxins that they can use in organic growing. But yeah, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't dictate anything about the quality of the soil and how the soil is nurtured. Now, most organic farmers do practice good husbandry of the soil, but they're not, I would say most of them are not aware, or they don't use biodynamic methods, which are really what everybody needs to be doing. Biodynamics is the process of using microbes and rock powders and homeopathic treatments to the soil and probiotics and things to make the soil an incredible macrocosm or microcosm of life that delivers nutrients to plants. And so when you do that, actually, you'll see, of course, much bigger, more robust plants, but you'll also see much bigger, more robust animals because they're eating the plants. And I saw evidence of this out in New Mexico a few years ago. I was visiting my cousin who told me we wanted to go backpacking out in the wilderness, and he said, well, hey, I know a place that's really wonderful. We can go backpacking on a Native American reservation, which you're not legally supposed to do. But he knew how to sneak in, and he said, it's weird. All of the plants and animals are bigger there. And the reason is because the Native Americans know how to nurture the land and nature. And so you create more, when your soil is being taken care of and left naturally, you've got more microbial action in it that eats more minerals and delivers them to plants better, and particularly these monoatomic minerals, which are extremely regenerative and healing, and they in plants, they make plants grow really big and help develop high levels of nutrients. So they nurture the land that develops nutrient-dense plant growth with bigger, more robust plants. The animals that eat that then have more nutrition, and they're bigger and more robust. That's
interesting. I wonder about, you ever see those pictures of, like berries or apples that you would see in the wild, or I don't even think there's wild bananas, but bananas that have all their seeds in them, they're really small. Do you think that it's weird because, these things, like you said, a giant tomato, I've seen pictures of tomatoes that were grown with Ormus and they're huge, but I've also heard people talk about, wild food and how bitter and astringent it is and how small they are, filled with seeds and things. And in one aspect, wild is always better because you're getting so much more nutrition and more robust than a hardy plant if it's in the wild. A lot of people do that with like chaos gardening and things in their own backyard. But I wonder if, like, what would be more robust, do you think? Like a tomato that was raised on Ormus and just fed these incredible nutrients and is massive, or a tiny little tomato in the wild?
Well, plants in the wild are always going to be, well, not always, I shouldn't say that. Plants in the wild in general, that system is always going to be optimal.
Okay.
But there are parts of the world where you have much more nutrient-dense plants and much healthier plants than others, and it's because of these Ormus element levels in the soil. For example, Alexander the Great, one of the reasons why he conquered Egypt was to get the soil to grow crops in the soil of the Nile Delta, because it was flooded every year by massive amounts of high Ormus elements and plant material, rotting plant material. Mm-hmm. And, I'm sure he didn't know anything about Ormus, I'm assuming, but they just knew that those crops grew highly dense plants which fed the culture, which is part of the reason why the Egyptians were so intelligent. And cultures around the world, you can correlate the rise and renaissance of civilizations with the food supply. And it correlates to the plants growing in Ormus soils. The higher the level of these monatomic elements, which typically are volcanic soils that are bioavailable. They can be there and not necessarily be bioavailable. But so, for example, in volcanic soils in Central America, South America, you're going to get these nutrient-dense plants that are high in Ormus. The Nile River Delta, before they built the High Aswan Dam, had it, and other places like that. And that's part of what influences the rise of these higher cultures. That, along with geopathic energy, which comes from a combination of the energy coming from the center of the earth being filtered through minerals in the soil that have certain vibrational frequencies, because crystals are oscillators. I mean, this is a common phenomenon that's known in conventional science and physics and engineering. Crystals are oscillators. When you send energy into them of one frequency, it'll come out the other end, the frequency of the crystal. And so when you're living over deposits of minerals that have certain frequencies that are beneficial to living organisms, then you're going to get better growth and you're going to have a higher development of consciousness and society there. And human beings also have understood this and have manipulated or used geomancy to construct structures in cities or in homes or whatever to influence this and improve this. This is kind of where Feng Shui came about. Feng Shui came about from the observation that there were areas where the plants and animals were bigger and healthier, and they understood it was from the stones around there. So they would bring these stones into their gardens and place them around the gardens, and they would put out these scalar fields because they were volcanic stones that were high in Ormus, and they would put out these scalar fields that would enhance plant growth and also help the animals. And then they started bringing them into their homes and arranging them in certain ways, and that was the beginnings of Feng Shui. So these kinds of things have been known and studied historically and used. And there are people like Philip S. Callahan who's written books about it. He calls it paramagnetism, but it's the same thing. It's just scalar energy. So So growing plants out of nature, yes, is going to be better certainly than growing them in, the greenhouse or whatever. But with that said, if you understand how to optimize that, you can feed them Ormus elements. You can, for example, feed plants rock powders and microbes that will radically jack up the nutrient levels, and you're not going to get some kind of weird human abomination. You're going to get something that occurs in nature, but you're just going to be, intentionally creating that.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, you talking about the rock dust and rock elements and Ormus and things. Is there a place that you'd recommend where people can go online to get these things to put on their existing gardens, do you think?
Yeah. The easiest thing to do is to buy the book, The Enlivened Rock Powders by Harvey Lisle, Lisle. You can get it on Amazon. And that whole book is about rock powders and which ones you can use for what purposes and where to get them. The two favorites that I use, I use several. Azomite is a really easy one to get. That's AZOMITE. And you can go to azomite.com and you can find it, where local distributors are in your area for that. That's a real common one. Wow. You can also buy it online. Rhyolite, which is RHYELITE, also known as Jersey green sand. That is another mineral powder that you can buy pretty readily. I think Fertrell is the company that sells it. And that's a rock powder you can use that's affordable.
How do you spell Fertrell?
Also, Redmond Minerals, they sell a mineral product for livestock that you can use for agriculture as well.
So, Ken, how do you spell Fertrell?
Fertrell.
Okay, and what was the second one that you just mentioned right there? Something minerals?
Redmond Minerals, REDMOND, Redmond Minerals. They sell minerals for various purposes, mainly for livestock, but they've got rock powders that you can buy and you can use it for sprouting or crops or whatever.
That's cool. So do you go on to azomite.com and buy azomite from them?
I have there are several local nurseries around here that sell it. We use it in manufacturing of our Scalar energy devices, so I buy pallets of it.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I looked up Rhyolite Fertrell and I got remineralized.org, and I think they have some cool stuff, don't they?
Yeah, you can Google Jersey green sand and you can find it. That's the common name for it.
Jersey green sand. Okay, we'll put that in there.
There are tons of others. There's rock powders. You can get shungite powder. You can get granite powders. Most of these are going to be volcanic and high in Ormus.
What about straight Ormus itself? Is that does that come as a liquid, or does that? How would someone? It comes
in different forms. If you want to buy it, if you want to buy an Ormus, what I call an alchemical Ormus extract. There's a company, actually there's a couple. There's a company called MyGrow Minerals, and their website is mygrowminerals.com, MYGROW minerals.com. And they sell a mineral product that is Ormus. It's a liquid Ormus, and it's stable, and you can foliar feed or root feed your plants with that. I use that I use it in hydroponics. I use it in sprouts growing in trays. I foliar feed them with that. Oh, wow. And I use it on root feeding of plants growing out in the ground. And I foliar feed everything with that stuff. So that's a really good one. There's also a product called Humana Gold, and that's HUMANNA Gold. And you can find that at humanagold.com. And that just takes like a tablespoon. That's a classic alchemical Ormus made with what's called the wet method, but they do a really, really good job of making it, and they have a level of consciousness that I am comfortable with recommending. Most of the alchemical forms I'm not comfortable with recommending.
Yeah.
But that's a good one.
Just pulled up their site. Wow, that's really cool. So you can buy it on their website. It looks like, wow, there's so many cool things out there.
Tons, and there are tons of other things. I've got videos on YouTube about growing nutrient-dense food. People can Google and they can see a lot more details. There's so many things you can do. You can ferment, for example. You can make your own plant foods by fermenting rock powders and different kinds of nutrients in scalar fields and magnetic fields with a microbe culture called effective microorganisms. And I teach people how to do that. And you can get just crazy plant growth with that.
Wow. Have you ever done the, what is that called? It was a guy years ago doing this sound. He was using sound.
Oh, yeah. Sonic Bloom.
Sonic Bloom. That's right. Yeah. Is he still around?
Yeah,
doing
Dan
this
Carlson. Yeah, it's still around. I don't know if Dan Carlson's still alive, but Sonic Bloom's still around, and it still works, and it's great. I was growing huge tomato plants in North Carolina with Sonic Bloom.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I just looked
it works. But you can do the same thing yourself. You can, buy the Sonic Bloom recordings, and then just take some rock powders, volcanic rock powders like azomite, and maybe some shungite, and ferment it with the effective microorganisms, and you can do the same thing for a lot less money.
Now I'm looking at the Sonic Bloom website, and they have these different speakers that you put around your garden and your trees and things, and on the ground. My question, I'm always thinking about this kind of stuff, is I'm guessing that these little speaker boxes are wired, and if they are wired, are they producing any EMF, do you think?
Extremely low levels. An audio signal going across a wire is like infinitesimally small, so it really wouldn't affect anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm always just thinking about this kind of...
I mean, the EMF from the speaker cone would be the strongest, but that's only going to radiate outward about 6 inches. It's really not going to affect the plants.
Speaking
But then the bottom line is, I've used it and it works.
Wow. That's
so
amazing.
whatever, if there's any EMF that's affecting anything, the sound is way overcompensating for it.
It's cool. It's interesting what sound does to the physiology of biological matter. We had a guest on a while back who was having, she's really, really into all the stuff that we're into, and has been so for, I don't know, like 40 years, but she had a genetic, heart issue that she, eventually needed to get surgery for. And so what she did was, she found a surgeon and she scheduled the surgery to be on a good astrological day with I forget what it was, the waxing of the waning moon. It's like she had all this stuff set up, and she gave the surgeon, some ear, I think it was like maybe an iPod device or something that, she had him put into her ears after she went out. And in the recordings, I think she recorded her own voice with affirmations behind, binaural beat music and all this stuff to play in her ears during the surgery to ensure a successful outcome. But I thought, wow, that's really interesting. It's kind of like the Sonic Bloom stuff, you're kind of this thing with music and sound and stuff is pretty interesting. Sound
is unbelievably powerful. I mean, just absolutely unbelievably. And I've got some very real experience with it. I was doing, for example, a crystal bowl meditation with a friend of mine who was teaching a sound healing class, and she was just toning with these crystal bowls, making the tones with these crystal bowls. And it was probably a 4-hour class, and both me and my assistant were there. We got done. We were completely wiped out, just absolutely exhausted just from listening to these bowls. And then we get home, and it's like 8 o'clock at night. We had to go to bed. I slept like 10 hours. And the next morning when I got up, I was still wiped out, and I went to use the bathroom, and my urine was really, really dark, which means I was really detoxing at a deep level.
Wow.
So there's one little experience with sound. But the most amazing one there, that I've come across, there's a woman named Sherry Edwards, which if people want to contact her, her name is Sharry, Sherry Edwards. I've got her link and information on the services page at freshandalive.com. So if you go to services.freshandalive.com, you can see her and a bunch of other amazing healers there. But she has the ability to listen to a person's voice and to know what's wrong with them and then tone and heal them. And so she wanted to give that ability to other people. So she wound up developing this combination of hardware and software that you can record your voice and it will analyze your voice, and then it will program an analog sound player, kind of like an MP3 player, but it's analog rather than digital. And then you listen to that tone and it will heal you.
Wow.
So I knew about this technology, but I didn't really appreciate it. And a friend of mine was a practitioner of it. And she had told me stories about it, and I had one experience with it where I had gone to a swimming pool party and did two things that I never do. I went swimming in a chlorinated pool, and I ate a piece of chocolate cake.
Well, you got to have
non-organic chocolate cake.
You got to have a little bit of fun, right?
Yeah, well, it was my niece's party, and I didn't want to poo-poo it, so I did that. And
there you go.
So the next morning, I wake up and I'm all stuffed up. So it just so happened I was visiting my friend with the sound technology, and she hooked me up to it. And she said, oh, well, the casein in the dairy in the chocolate cake combined with the chlorine in the swimming pool and created a toxin that's causing the stuffiness. So she programmed a frequency into this device, and I listened to it with headphones for an hour, and all the stuffiness went away.
Wow.
And I thought, well, that's pretty nifty. That's great, Then, a few years later, my brother was in an accident, and he was up on a ladder 20 feet up and fell, and his leg got caught in the ladder, and he fell down and just snapped his ankle in two like a twig.
Oh, wow.
And shattered his foot. And he was in such intense pain, he wanted to die. He told the doctors, just let him die. And they told him that they were going to have to do all this surgery, and that he was going to have to lose his foot, and he wouldn't be able to walk on it and stuff. And they said, he was going to be bedridden for 3 months and then on crutches for another 3 months. So I got him connected with this practitioner. He got the sound technology, and he listened to it for 3 hours a day. So I called after a week. I called to see how he was doing, and my mom answered the phone, which was normal because he was bedridden. Mm-hmm. And I said, how's he doing? And she said, well, he's doing pretty good. He's out mowing the grass with a push mower right now.
No way.
And that's in 1 week. In 1 week. And the doctors were telling him he wasn't going to be out of bed for 3 months. So sound has a profound ability, particularly for acute injuries and particularly for stuff that has happened recently. It can have an utterly amazing ability to heal and restructure.
Now, what do you think about using sound like that as you're falling asleep? Do you think that would be a good thing to reprogram your subconscious mind?
Absolutely, and that's what that technology can do. They sell these big subwoofers with this device that will program frequencies for you, and you can do exactly that. And there are other technologies like binaural beats, like holosync and hemisync, or there's one that combines the binaural beats with sound, with light flashes, where you wear these glasses combined with the binaural beats. It's called New Reality. And that is really effective at changing your programming, whether you want to get rid of a bad habit or adopt a new habit or learn a language or whatever. It accelerates it radically.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, I've seen these new reality things. Speaking of going back a little bit to the soil, years ago I was reading a book called, I was referencing a book called the Anastasia series. I'm sure you know about those.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting about how they talked about walking on the soil. If you're going to plant a new plant, walking on the soil with your bare feet, because Anastasia was saying that toxins leave the bottom of your feet, and it will educate the soil to know the exact remedy that particular plant could create in order to heal you based upon the oils and the things and the toxins coming out of the bottom of your feet when you walk on the soil above the roots. I thought that was really interesting.
Well, and also your feet, if you think about it, your feet have reflexology points on them, they're acupuncture nodes, which are little scalar vortexes. So the scalar field coming off your body also will program the soil, because the soil's got crystals in it, and crystals get programmed with frequency, or they can get programmed with frequency, particularly from scalar waves. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. I will tell you an interesting thing I found out about the Anastasia story, because the information, I've actually encountered that information from other sources that I would say very odd sources. And so I was really surprised to see some of this stuff in the Anastasia book. So I figured that wherever that information was coming from, it was probably extraterrestrial at its source. So anyway, the Vladimir Megre, the guy who allegedly wrote the books, and for people that aren't familiar with the story, supposedly he went off into the taiga forest in the tundra of Russia met this beautiful blonde-haired naked woman living out in the freezing cold named Anastasia, and she basically in 3 days downloaded all this information to him that he turned into 9 books. And when I heard that immediately had me questioning the validity of the story. Well, come to find out, as often happens with me, I serendipitously discovered a lawsuit online against Maigret, and it was by a woman who had channeled all of that material, and Maigret had been attending her channelings. And so basically he was this unscrupulous businessman. And if you read these books, you can kind of see it's like supposedly all this channeled information, this woman's very benevolent and loving and kind and aware and all this stuff.
Right.
And Maigret is basically kind of an asshole.
Right, he is,
He's like kind of rude and crude and just not very enlightened. And it's like, and supposedly in these books, he gets married to her and has a baby with her, right? So why would this highly developed conscious being marry some scumbag businessman who doesn't really care about people? And but the true story is that this information was channeled by this lady, and the information is very interesting and valid. And Maigret basically stole it and created this story around it, and sold it as his. So that's kind of the real story about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of debate online about whether or not some of the story is true, some of the story is fiction. It's like a lot of people are unaware or unsure about this guy and his books. But I have to say the information is really fascinating, though.
Well, and it's valid. I mean, there are a lot of practical things in those books that you can do that you can see for yourself. For example, like using menstrual blood, mixing menstrual blood with water and feeding it to plants, or sucking on seeds for about 10 minutes before you plant them. And what that does is it programs the seeds vibrationally, or the soil vibrationally in the case of the menstrual blood, with the DNA of the person, so that those plants will actually create phytonutrients and antioxidants and things specifically to help heal that person. And that's been demonstrated in Russian science. We don't hear much about it here in the United States, but that's been verified by Russian scientists that really occurs. So that was in those books. I was told that by ETs 30 years ago to do that. And I was also told some other stuff in those books that was very interesting that I haven't heard anywhere else.
Really?
I think it's in book 4 or 5. There's a chapter where Anastasia takes Maigret, supposedly, to this planet or this place where sentient machines live, and that they feed off of human beings, and they use human consciousness to kind of propel their society, and it's part of their paradigm. They basically get human beings to develop machinery in their culture, and over time that machinery evolves over millennia to where it becomes more and more sophisticated. You develop computer technology and artificial intelligence, and once an organic culture has developed artificial intelligence, this machine consciousness can come in, kind of like in Terminator. This may be where the Terminator stories comes from, where these sentient machines can then come in and essentially take over. And so I was told this by these extraterrestrials and shown this and how it all worked. They called it the machine kingdom. So here it is in these Anastasia books, and I was absolutely floored because I'd never heard that story anywhere.
Wow.
Except in those books and my encounters.
Yeah. Have you read all 9 books of the Anastasia?
A long time ago I have. I don't remember half of it probably.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. The parts that you do remember are always the parts that are the most practical, like you're talking about putting your saliva on the seeds and the menstrual blood. It's
right.
It's really
raising
fascinating.
Bees in hollow logs. I was raising bees, and I tried that. They're around. I mean, that's why in ancient times people use these dome-shaped beehives. It's because the hive itself is a scalar wave antenna, like an egg. It directs this scalar energy coming from the sun and the earth into the hive and enhances the life force of the bees. And putting them in square boxes doesn't do that. And when I was raising bees, I observed this, that certain influences on my bees would really make them aggravated, like having a cell phone around them.
Oh, right.
Really agitated them. They really hated that. But having one of my scalar wave generators around them really enhanced the strength of the hives. So there definitely is something to, again, creating these round dwellings for living organisms.
Gosh, man, all of our houses should be round, like those earth shifts, right? I mean, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you look, this is in that talk I did that's on YouTube about the physics of consciousness, but if you look at what an egg is this shape that is, first of all, composed of bone, which is high in these Ormus elements. And so when the scalar energy from the sun and the earth comes to it, it is concentrated into the center of the egg by its shape and the combination of the Ormus elements in it. Mm-hmm. So it's a vessel for enhancing life force. And throughout history, the ancient people understood this and they mimicked it. When you look at Greek amphoras or kimchi pots and vessels like that, the reason that they're shaped like eggs is because, first of all, they're made out of very specific clays that are high in Ormus, and it will concentrate life force or scalar waves into the center of that vessel, and it will, if you're storing water, it will structure the water homeopathically, make it more beneficial for living organisms, and it will also make it last longer. Food, same thing. If you're making kimchi, same thing. It makes the microbes less stressed or happier. And so when you're making a ferment, they're going to produce more and more quickly. And then when you bury a kimchi pot in the ground, what you're doing is immersing it in a scalar field that the frequency is being altered by the crystals in the soil. So you're getting all these natural harmonics from the crystals in the soil. And then, over the weeks or months that you leave it in the ground, you're getting these different astrological or astronomical arrangements of this scalar energy coming down to the earth and parting into it, which is also the foundation of biodynamics. Rudolf Steiner would take cow horns and stuff them full of cow poop and bury them underground for a full year and then dig them up and then take that poop, which had turned into this homeopathic soil mixture, mix that into water and vortex it, and that would create a homeopathic solution which, when it was sprayed on soil, would enhance the soil immensely. So this all goes back to these understanding the fundamentals of how matter and energy work on this planet.
Yeah, the egg shape is fascinating to me. I've always thought that it was so interesting. There's an outfit out of Australia in Byron Bay, actually, a place that I've been to, and it's called Living Water Flow Forms, and he sells these really giant clay eggs, and he bases his work off of Schauberger and all of that too. And yeah, you can buy these like 675 liter massive clay or 43 liter massive clay eggs to store your water and to keep it structured. And it's pretty interesting what people are doing these days, Yeah, absolutely. It is. And I forget the name of the company, but there's a company in New Mexico that sells these really amazing. The most amazing water I've ever had was from one of these devices where it's a light bulb shaped vessel, but it's very large, about 2 feet tall. Oh wow! And it has an opening at the top, and they send water in it's fed by a reverse osmosis system, and then water comes at an angle at the top of the light bulb, and it spirals around the inside of the light bulb, comes down out of the throat, wow. And then it goes into a storage container or a water crock, and they have all these crystals and metals like silver and gold in it, and it also has lights shining on it that will impart frequencies into it, and then it's recirculated back up to the top of the bulb. So it just sits there in vortexes. Oh, and also they have magnets around the throat of the of the bulb. So basically what you get is a homeopathic programming of the water, and you also get the creation of Ormus in the water. And that water, I have had some of that water. I was drinking it all day one time when I was at an event, and it's absolutely amazing. It's extremely detoxifying to the body, and yet you don't get any cleanse reactions from it. So It's really cool, and it's very alkalizing to the body. Do you remember what it was called? You don't remember the name?
I don't remember. The New Earth Center in Austin, Texas used to have one. They're closed up, but Artemis Kazan, he knows. He's on Facebook. His name is ART. I think it's ARTTEMIS. Kazan, I believe is how you spell his name. He knows the name of it because he used to have. He probably still has one.
Oh yeah, I see a YouTube video, "How to Detoxify with Essential Oils" by Artemis Kazan. That must be him.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, he knows.
You know what's so cool about today's culture and today's world? You know, it's so interesting because at the beginning of the conversation, we're just talking about, you know, how, oh gosh, you know, the programming of the current world. But man, there's so many solutions out there, and there's so many people doing so many great, cool things. Like just everything that we've been talking about. It's just amazing that with all of the bad comes all the good. You know, it's really encouraging.
Yeah, well, you can't have the good without the bad and vice versa, because the scalar energy of consciousness that comes to the planet to create these problems, simultaneously the opposite polarities always create the solutions. So when somebody's thinking up some new heinous, crazy, insane, damaging thing to do to people or the planet, there's also some brilliant, amazing, uplifted, enlightened person who's creating the solution for it.
Mm-hmm. So
I've seen it over and over again.
And, you know, it's kind of going back to the current state of our world. And what I think is really fascinating is that in 20 or 30 years, the people who are going to be in charge of the government's, you know, governmental systems, people that are going to be in charge of the oil companies and all these people that are eventually going to be taking over are going to be people that haven't grown up without the use of the internet and cell phones and these technologies to be able to get access to information. So a lot of these people that are currently running things were, you know, maybe raised 30, 40, 50 years ago in a completely different world. And so with that said, I think it's, you know, there's a lot of really great things that can happen because the state of consciousness of people's minds just all around the planet is being awakened, you know. And so as a result of that, these are the people that are going to be the new leaders one day. And I think it's going to be a good thing, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I know there's a man named Sasha Stone who's a brilliant, lovely man who in the UK who is working with these very, very wealthy, the children of very, very wealthy, what people might call Illuminati types, but basically the top power brokers in the world with extreme wealth. And a lot of the children, if not most of the children of these people, do not like what's been going on. They don't like the paradigm on this planet that their parents have created, and a lot of them want to change it. And so Sasha Stone and others like him and myself are teaching these people how to create this new paradigm, because they know what's not working, but they don't know, because the reality that they're immersed in, they don't know how to create something different. So there are people like us who need to show these people, along with everybody else, how to create this new paradigm that's loving and uplifting and sustainable and enlightened.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's
so I'm
cool.
absolutely optimistic that these powers that be are quickly becoming the powers that were. I think it was David Rockefeller died recently at 101 or something. So that's always the way it happens. You know, the old guard dies off, and usually in about 80-year cycles around the lifespan of a human being is when you see these paradigm shifts occur. And the last paradigm shifts on this planet were around the early 1900s with the invention of the internal combustion engine and cars and flight and certain technologies like that, television, certain things. So we're on the precipice, I think, of some major paradigm busting changes.
Yeah, it's really encouraging. It really is, because this is a time in history that, you know, with the advent of being able to get access to all this information that we can get access to, and people's mind are opening, and people are having new perspectives on things, and you know, these are going to be the leaders of our new world. And I just personally think it's going to be really a different thing coming than what we have now, because what we have now obviously is a result of 30, 40, 50 years ago and people growing up in those times. And I'm just really excited about it. It's really good.
Oh, I am too. And I mean, you know, even if you just look around at what's occurring right now, what I see is that new paradigm thinkers and creators are succeeding extremely well, and people that are trying to hang on to the old paradigms are suffering immensely at every level, not just at the, you know, upper echelons of wealth, but average people. You know, the people that are trying to hang on to this old paradigm of you know, drugs and surgery and TV and mind control and, you know, being distracted by things in their lives that don't matter and living meaningless lives. they're all self-destructing. They're all dying of diseases. They're extremely depressed. I think 70% of Americans are on at least one pharmaceutical. Half of them are on more than one. And a vast majority of them are on antidepressants. So we've got a massively depressed society that doesn't know how to get out of it. And they need people like you and me to show them this other paradigm. And it's very uplifting. It's a lot of fun. I mean, my life is great. It's magical. It's fun. I get to hang out with cool, amazing people. It's like this weekend. I'm going to be hanging out with some mind-blowing, amazing people who have solutions for all these things we're talking about. And we're going to hang out around a fire and eat some good food and have a good time and party.
No way. That's so cool. Yeah.
It's way better than watching TV.
That's so true. That is so true. You know what? I think next time we'll get to all of our questions because we have a handful of questions. I think maybe we'll do that next time if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Yeah, and go check out, everyone, freshandalive.com. Ken's got some really cool stuff on there. He's got, blenders and dehydrators. He's got the Scalar Energy Rest Shield. If you want to support us, if you like the work that we're doing, you can go through our link in our store and click on over, and that will take you to Ken's store. And we would appreciate that. But if you don't want to do that, that's okay. You can support Ken. All kinds of really cool stuff. And we also sell the Vitalizer Plus through your link, Ken. So that's available for people too. And I'm looking at, you got some really great stuff. You have the E3 or EM effective microorganisms too on your store.
Yeah, we have a really interesting product called Rad Detox that will actually neutralize radioactivity in the body and help detox it out of the body. I'm getting ready to launch a bunch of really new Scalar energized products. They're really cool and mind-blowing. And unfortunately, we can't tell the truth about what these things can do.
Oh, man.
But I'm always looking at, the not just the latest and greatest, but the most affordable stuff. Because the most powerful stuff usually is the least expensive and the most basic. From nature.
Speaking of not being able to talk, have I told you about the conversation? I'm not sure if I told you personally about the conversation I had with this lady who she's a contractor for a company that puts out these magnetic pulsars, and I won't name any names, but it was interesting. I was speaking to her on a Saturday, and we were talking for maybe an hour or so, and she was saying that this is how crazy and kooky it's becoming. She was saying that they can't have anyone making any claims about any of the products they sell. So all the products they sell, probably similar to you, is you can't even say what they do. You just have to offer them, and then you let other people do YouTube videos who don't sell them, and they can talk about them, but the person who sells them can't make any claims or say anything. And she said to me something that was really weird. She said that their company has been contacted multiple times by the governmental sources and different agencies, and have warned her when people go on to her Facebook account for that product and they say, "Thank you so much for your product. It is helping to heal my cancer," or something like that. If they make a post on their wall, if the person who bought the product makes a post on the manufacturer's wall, and the manufacturer clicks like on that, that's seen as a claim in public.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Oh yeah, well, and Facebook and social media posts are used all the time in court as legal evidence. So people don't seem to be aware of that fact.
I just thought I could understand. But man, if they just click like on the customer's comment, that's looked at as a public claim. That to me is like, wow, you are really stretching to gain this control of language, right?
Oh yeah, that's it. People don't understand how far these companies go to manipulate the information online and elsewhere. Loading up Wikipedia with nonsense and suppressing truth and information about natural solutions. Of course, hiring tons of shills to troll YouTube and social media and post negative comments and that kind of stuff. I see that quite a bit.
Have you seen that one? That website,
What's that?
That website called Quack Watch. You know about that?
Exactly. Yeah. And that guy's been sued and beat multiple times. I know Dr. Joe Mercola sued him in one, and other people have for libel and lying about people. But they just pay it. I mean, it's not him; it's the medical industry's behind him, no doubt. Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, that's kind of a badge of honor to be on Quack Watch.
I know. I would think so. You're amongst the great people there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with your products, you got some new products coming out soon, you said?
Yeah, we're going to be coming out in the next few weeks with a salt that has been scalar energized, and I can't really tell you what all it does, but I would just say ain't no salt like it on the planet that I know of.
Wow.
I was looking at, and probably will sell Himalayan salt that is mined by hand without explosives, because typically when salt is mined, even Himalayan salt is usually mined with explosives. So we found a source that is mined by hand, so there's no explosives from the chemicals in the salt.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then the scalar salt is 5 different salts, red salt, black salt, pink salt, and they've been energized with scalar energy, so they will actually hold a frequency.
Wow, that's interesting. And then any other projects coming down the line?
Oh, I've always got new projects. I'm so behind on my projects because I'm traveling. I've been traveling, and I'm going to be traveling through June. I'm going to go see the Bosnian pyramids and visit with Samiras Managic, and so that'll be really interesting. And who knows what we'll discover out of that.
Wow.
But I've been working for a while on a new portable scalar wave device called the Stress Shield. People have been calling in and asking us about it for months, but it's getting close. I just haven't had a moment to sit down and do the R&D that I need to do with it.
Wow, that's so cool.
We also have a device called the Home Shield, which is not on our website, and it's a whole house, basically the scalar device we have on our website called the Rest Shield. It's a pyramid-shaped device for sleep, which I want to encourage people, if they are interested in this stuff, to definitely click the links on your site to get it, because we want to support you. But I've got a whole house one that is basically 7 of those pyramids in one device, and you put it outdoors, and it has other benefits as well outdoors, but I can't tell you what those benefits are.
Oh, wow.
But if anybody's interested in that device, they can contact us, and we can send you information about it.
Wow, so you can sell it, but you just don't put it on your website? Is that the deal?
It's not on the website right now, but we're going to put it on the website as a whole house sleep aid, but it does a lot more than that.
Oh, wow. Okay. So if someone wants to find out, if they're listening to this and they want to learn more about it?
Just contact us through the website, and we can send you information on it.
Okay. Maybe they can just mention our show or my name or something. And
most definitely. If anybody is interested in buying one, then please let Justin know. Let us know that Justin referred you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I love all the stuff you're doing. You're into some really cool stuff.
And once we get it on our website, we can give you an affiliate link to it.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah, I love your rest shield, man. Next to my bed, I have another pyramid that was made with somebody else, but it doesn't use the scalar energy. And so I just laugh every time I get up in the morning because my nightstand looks like the Giza Plateau. It's like all these pyramids. It's awesome. I love that thing.
Yeah, I've got them surrounding me in my house, and I've got like some of the original prototypes that I made, which are pretty funny. The very first one I made is huge. It's like 12 inches tall, and it's gigantic, and it was really expensive to make because it had a different type of coil in it, and it had a ton of expensive minerals in it. So that was like the original prototype. And I made one that was cone-shaped, and I put this giant selenite crystal in the middle of it, which was probably about 10 inches tall and maybe 3 inches in diameter.
Oh, wow.
And it was actually too strong. It was so strong that all I wanted to do was sleep all day and all night.
Oh, my gosh.
So,
jeez. Well, that would be good for someone who's, sick and, they need to sleep a lot to heal.
Well, oddly enough, I gave it to a friend of mine who uses cell phone a lot, and he's around Wi-Fi and stuff a lot.
Wow.
And he said that it felt normal to him. He said it wasn't too strong for him, but then he's jazzing his brain with all this other stuff.
Oh man, that is so cool. Yeah, I love all the stuff you have. It's so many. It's such a wide array of different types of products.
Yeah, there's so much more that as we grow, I'll be able to do more R&D, and I've got so many ideas for so many. I mean, free energy. I know multiple ways of making free energy, and eventually that's going to be allowed to come out. I'll tell people this: for people who want to experiment around with a simple way of making free energy, you can buy a Farberware inductive hot plate. You can buy them online. Sometimes you can get them at Walmart or Target and places like that. But it's not a regular hot plate that heats up. It's an inductive hot plate, which is the type that puts out a strong electric field, and then you get these special pots that have iron bottoms on them, and they will heat up the pot. So you get in a Farberware. It has to be a Farberware brand inductive hot plate. And then you can make your own Tesla pancake coil just out of, simple wire like a power cord kind of wire, or speaker wire, something like that. Just wrap yourself up a big Tesla pancake coil, put it on the surface of the hot plate, turn it on, and you will get somewhere between 2 to 5 times more energy out of the Tesla coil than is going into the hot plate. And so that's one way that you can get so-called over unity. Now, you're really not breaking any laws of physics, because what you're doing is bringing scalar energy into the system and converting it into electricity. So it doesn't break any laws of physics, but you will get a lot more energy out of that Tesla coil than what's going in through that hot plate. So you can use that principle, for example, hook it up to some solar panels, and you could jack up the solar output 5 times of what it normally would be, and then your solar is going to be affordable.
Oh my goodness! Wow, there's so many things. Do you know of any good places, or are you planning on making videos about how to do these types of things?
Yeah, when it's safe to not get killed over it.
You got a bodyguard, 24/7 bodyguard.
I mean, really, I back in the early 90s, I worked with free energy technologies of various kinds. And I worked with a man named Ewell Brown who developed water fuel technology, and he was killed, and other people like Stanley Meyer and other people I knew were killed, and friends of mine were murdered. And so it's still not safe to come out with that stuff too publicly. I think Elon Musk is probably going to be one of the first people to do it, because I'm sure he knows about it. And I think all of the stuff that he's doing right now with these whole house battery systems and that kind of stuff, I think that's just a precursor to having the infrastructure ready to come out with free energy devices.
Wow. Yeah, I suspect so. Yes.
I think that may be why Trump also appointed Elon Musk to be on his technology advisory committee.
Yeah, that was a fascinating move when I learned about that, man. That was really surprised there.
Yeah. So, so I'm encouraged by that. But,
that's great. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, it's been a couple hours. I think we should pull the plug and let you go.
Yeah. All righty. Well, just give me a call whenever you want me back, and I'll be happy to talk, and we can answer questions if anybody sends questions in.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, Ken. Hang on the line there, Ken, and I'm just going to close out the live show. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. This was a great conversation, and if you like Ken and his work, make sure to check out freshandalive.com. There'll be a link on this show page. Let me get that for you. Make sure I get that correct. You know what? I'm going to try to actually put some of these links that we talked about. I don't normally do show notes these days because it takes so long. And we just don't have the time to do it anymore because we're doing so many shows, but I'll try to put a couple of them on this show page, which will be extremehealthradio.com/518. And if you are interested in his Rest Shield, and any of his other products, make sure to visit our store or extremehealthradio.com/518. And I'll put a link over there, and that way that helps to support the work that we do, which is 518 free shows we've done so far for the last few years. So we appreciate that. And thank you all for listening. If you like the show, please share it. Please help get the word out and help people learn some new concepts and ideas. So we would appreciate that. Ken would appreciate that. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Did you know that conventional dog food contains antibiotics, herbicides, pesticides, ground up carcasses from roadkill subjected to high heat processing, artificial colors, chemical preservatives, way too many carbohydrates, genetically modified corn syrups, indigestible grains, and a lack of moisture content in the dry kibble? Obviously, this can lead to health conditions like diabetes, itchy skin, teeth and gum problems, liver damage, obesity, behavioral issues, pancreatic problems, and even cancer. That's why we recommend the BARF diet, which is the biologically appropriate raw food diet from Barf World. Their unprocessed raw meats contain bone, organ meats, vitamins, and minerals that are loaded with enzymes. Barf World founder Robert Mueller explains more.
Sure, I don't have to convince you on the damage that's caused by high heat to food. So as a result, we see many skin disorders, a lot of arthritis, obesity, heart disease, cancers. I mean, it's just rampant. The vet clinics are just full of these conditions. And basically a large percentage of the commercial pet food that's is made up of the human industry leftovers. And the pet food industry makes use of this waste product. And in addition to that, we are subjected to the products coming out of the rendering plants. Garbage in, garbage out. If you feed garbage to your dog, you're going to end up with garbage health. You know, if you put the right gas in, your engine runs smoother and lasts longer. So if you put the right fuel in the tank, you're going to get the right output. Garbage in, garbage out.
We've seen an immense difference with our dog Maggie being on this diet. Give your dog the gift of health today by going to extremehealthradio.com/barf or go to our store. That's extremehealthradio.com/barf to learn even more.
All right. Well, there you go. Episode 515 with Mr. Ken Rola. I'll keep this very short because that was a 2-hour podcast. Can you believe we did 2 hours with Ken? Oh, my goodness. Wow. That was a long show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You know, I was telling him off the air that we barely even scratched the surface. There's so many more topics I wanted to talk with him about. So maybe next time we'll do that. And make sure to send in your questions, too. Just put in the subject line something like question for Ken Rola. Something like that, if you want me to answer, ask a question to him about your health. But I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I thought that was really fascinating, really, really fascinating guy. And I liked everything he does. And that's why we support him by offering his rest shields on our website. So, yeah, those are amazing pieces of equipment that he's got put together. And I keep mine at the side of my bed for sleep. And if you go onto our store, you can watch some videos and listen to some stuff that he's said about the rest shield and what it does and all of that. I highly recommend them. They are really, really cool pieces of equipment, and I'm a junkie for health tools and health gadgets, and I think it's super, super beneficial, and we've been loving it, Kate and myself. So check that out in our store. That's how we support the show and keep everything free for you. And I want to thank you guys also for shopping through our Amazon link. That's such a huge help. It really is. So if you like the show, like what we do, do us a favor and go to extremehealthradio.com, and you only have to do this one time, but if you go there on the right hand side, there's a link for Amazon, a banner, but below it is some text that says click and drag me to your desktop. And if you drag that text to your desktop, it'll create a little icon right there on your desktop. And if you use that every time you make a purchase on Amazon, you don't have to even remember in the future to go through our website to get to Amazon. Just use that icon on your desktop, and that will help support the show. I do want to say thank you all to those of you who have been supporting us on Patreon. We really appreciate that. Patreon is a service where you can donate on a per podcast basis. So if you like what we do and you want to donate, 50 cents a show, if you think it's worth it, then you can go there and donate. And it comes out of your account once a month at the beginning of the month. If you have a Facebook account, you can sign up for Patreon literally in about a minute and do that. And you can put a cap on it as well. So if we do 50 shows in a month, we usually only do 12. But if we do 50, you can set your cap to $1 a month or something like that. So it never goes over that. And so that is really appreciative. If you can do that, if you like what we do, please consider doing that. We would really appreciate it. It would only be, $1, $5 a month, whatever it is you set. And that would help us tremendously. So a lot of times people think, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and it's easy to think that, other people will do it. But if you can remember to do that when you get back home, or if you go to our website right after the show ends, on your cell phone, there'll be a link to Patreon, and you'll see that at the bottom. So if you do that, that would help support the show. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much to all of you guys who have been supporting us. And also, one other thing I want to let you guys know too is that we're starting a membership community very, very soon. I'm thinking it's going to be launching around August, sometime in August of 2017. And we're going to be diving much deeper and creating courses on different aspects of health and healing. So we're going to be doing a course on every body part. So if you have liver issues, or if you have gallbladder issues, or if you have thyroid issues, brain issues, colon, lung, heart, all these things, we're going to be doing courses in depth about how to take care of those particular organs in your body. And then we're also going to be doing courses on health ailments like cholesterol, high blood pressure, insomnia, sleep, these types of things. And so we're going to be inviting high-level guests to create these courses. We're going to have a forum in there. There's a potential of doing like a seasonal cleanse that is overseen by a particular doctor. It's going to be an awesome place, and I'm really looking forward to connecting with you guys more in a private area that is private. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's a thing that I want for myself. It's a way for me to connect with you guys and to take your health to new levels, because when you're healthy, the world changes and the world's better. So it's going to be a way for us to find information and share ideas and things that are working for us. And so it's going to be really an awesome place. I'm really excited about it. It's going to change your life. It's going to be huge. We're just really excited about it. So right now, if you want to get on the waiting list, there's going to be a big discount for about 7 days before we launch in August. So the discount will be, it's going to be a monthly program. So it'll start, it'll come out of your account every month. But if you get on the waiting list and sign up during the first 7 days, you're going to get sort of grandfathered in. So the price will never go up for you, and you'll get that huge big discount forever as long as you remain a member. So this is going to be an awesome place. I'm really excited to meet all of you guys and to come together and to join in a private community and to help one another and create a really cool environment for us to get answers to our health problems too. And what we're also going to be doing is asking your questions to different health guests, and we're going to be alphabetizing those based on conditions. So everything that we talk about, like let's say I asked a doctor about Alzheimer's disease, and we talked for 5 or 10 minutes about solutions for that. That will be under the A category, and we're going to be adding to this all the time. So we're going to be really, really coming up with some practical how-to solutions for you guys, to take your health to the new levels that you want. So it's going to be really cool. I'm really excited about it. If you want to learn more about it, I'll put a link to that to the course at extremehealthradio.com/518. And let's see. Yeah, thank you for supporting us on Patreon. Thank you for buying through our Amazon link. We really appreciate that. And thank you for visiting our store, too, and checking out all the different products we have in our store. If you want the Rest Shield, that's available. The Scalar Energy Rest Shield in our store. We have lots of other products there as well. High-end, cutting-edge products that you won't see anywhere else. So this is going to be really cool. So check out our store if you're interested in any of that. But in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I hope you just have a great rest of your day. You learned a few things in this podcast, and like I said before, if you'd like to share it, we'd all be appreciative of that, Ken, as well as myself and Kate, because when you share our show, we get more listeners and new listeners, and that helps us to continue to do our work, and it also helps for new people to be able to understand these sort of strange and interesting concepts about how to take care of themselves. So it helps to save the world and change the world when you share good content on your social media channels. So we appreciate that if we make it in. So we appreciate that a lot. Love you guys. Let us know if we can ever help, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you